It was an ordinary morning, the kind that did not promise anything special. The man woke up early, just like he did every day. His alarm rang before the sun fully rose, and he quietly turned it off so it would not disturb the silence of his small house. He lived alone, in a modest neighborhood where people mostly kept to themselves. His life was simple. He worked hard, paid his bills on time, and tried to stay out of trouble. Nothing exciting ever really happened to him, and he had learned to accept that. After getting ready, he grabbed his keys and stepped outside. The air was cool, and the sky was a soft mix of gray and pale blue. He got into his old car, a vehicle that had seen better days but still ran well enough. As he drove, his mind was filled with the usual thoughts: work deadlines, rising expenses, and worries about the future. He had no idea that this day, which started like any other, was about to change his life in a way he could never imagine. The road he took to work was familiar. He had driven on it hundreds of times before. Trees lined the sides, and small shops were scattered along the way. Traffic was light, and everything felt calm. Then, just a few minutes into the drive, something caught his attention. Up ahead on the side of the road, he noticed a car pulled over with its hazard lights blinking. At first, he thought nothing of it. People often stopped for small issues. But as he got closer, he saw a woman standing next to the car, clearly struggling. She looked stressed and confused. One hand was on her phone, and the other rested on the side of the car. The tire was completely flat, pressed down against the road. Cars passed by her without slowing down. Some drivers glanced her way, but no one stopped. The man felt a familiar hesitation rise inside him. He was already running a little late, and stopping would delay him even more. For a moment, he considered driving past, just like everyone else. But something about the woman made him uneasy. She did not look careless or irresponsible. She looked genuinely stuck and unsure of what to do. He remembered times in his own life when he had needed help and felt invisible. Without thinking too much, he slowed down. His car rolled past her for a few seconds. Then he sighed and pulled over ahead of her vehicle. He parked safely and stepped out of his car. As he walked toward her, she noticed him and looked surprised, almost relieved. Her face showed a mix of worry and hope. He greeted her politely and asked if she was okay. She explained that she had been driving to an important appointment when her tire suddenly went flat. She admitted she had no idea how to change it and that her phone signal was weak. She had been standing there for nearly 20 minutes, feeling more helpless with every passing car. The man listened quietly. He was not a mechanic, but he knew how to change a tire. He told her not to worry and said he would help. She seemed shocked, as if she had not expected anyone to stop at all. She thanked him repeatedly, her voice shaking slightly. He told her it was no problem and asked her to step aside so he could take a look. As he worked, he noticed small details about her. Her clothes were neat, but simple. Her car was clean and well kept. She did not act demanding or entitled. Instead, she watched quietly, still holding her phone, as if afraid he might change his mind and leave. The man focused on the task, loosening the bolts and lifting the car with the jack. Sweat formed on his forehead, but he did not complain. While he worked, they exchanged a few words. She told him she was having a very stressful week, and that this breakdown felt like the last thing she needed. He smiled softly and said life had a way of testing people when they least expected it. His calm attitude seemed to relax her. For the first time since he stopped, she smiled. After some effort, the tire was finally replaced. He tightened the bolts carefully and lowered the car back onto the road. He wiped his hands on a cloth and stepped back. The job was done. The woman looked at the tire, then at him, her eyes filled with gratitude. She reached into her purse and offered him money, insisting he take it. He immediately refused. He told her he did not help for money and that he was just glad he could be useful. She seemed even more surprised by that. She asked for his name, and he told her. He asked if she would be okay driving to the nearest service station, and she nodded. Before getting in her car, she thanked him again, more sincerely than before. There was something in her look, as if she wanted to say more but held back. As she drove away, the man watched her car disappear down the road. He felt a strange sense of peace, mixed with curiosity. He got back in his own car and continued his drive, thinking that he had simply done a good deed. To him, it was just a small act on an ordinary day. He had no idea that this unexpected stop was only the beginning of a story far bigger than he could imagine. The rest of the day passed quickly, and the man hardly thought about the roadside incident again. Work kept him busy, and by the time evening came, his body felt heavy with tiredness. He returned home, ate a simple meal, and sat quietly, scrolling through his phone before going to bed. To him, helping the woman had been nothing more than a normal human reaction. He did not tell anyone about it, and he did not expect anything from it. Some good deeds, he believed, were meant to stay small and unnoticed. The next morning began like any other. He woke up early, got ready, and stepped outside to collect the newspaper. The neighborhood was calm, with only a few sounds of birds and distant traffic. He took a sip of his tea and stood near the door, enjoying the quiet moment. That was when something unusual caught his eye. Parked across the street was a large black SUV. It looked expensive and completely out of place in a modest neighborhood. Its windows were tinted and the engine was running. At first, he thought it belonged to a neighbor or someone visiting nearby. But as minutes passed, the SUV did not move. Two men sat inside, both wearing dark suits. They were not talking or checking their phones. They were simply waiting. A strange feeling crept into his chest. He tried to ignore it and went back inside, telling himself not to overthink things. But when he looked out again, the SUV was still there. His heart started beating faster. He could not remember doing anything wrong. He lived a quiet life, avoided trouble, and kept to himself. Still, the presence of the SUV made him uneasy. He wondered if he should call someone or just wait. Before he could decide, the driver's door opened. One of the men stepped out and slowly walked toward his house. He stood tall, calm, and serious. The man inside the house felt a sudden rush of fear. He opened the door halfway, unsure of what was about to happen. The man in the suit greeted him politely and asked if he was the one who lived there. His voice was firm but not threatening. Before the man could answer fully, the passenger door of the SUV opened. And then, to his complete shock, the woman from the roadside stepped out. She looked different now. Her posture was confident, her clothes were elegant, and there was no sign of the stress he had seen the day before. For a moment, he wondered if he was imagining things. She smiled when she saw him. It was the same smile, but stronger, more certain. She walked toward him, and suddenly all his fear turned into confusion. She greeted him by name, which surprised him even more. He had only told her his name once, in passing. He nodded, unsure of what to say. She explained that she had come to see him personally. She said that people often ignored strangers in trouble, but he had stopped without hesitation. He listened quietly, still trying to understand why this moment felt so heavy. She told him that after she left the roadside, she could not stop thinking about what he had done. Not because he fixed her tire, but because he refused money and treated her with respect. Then she revealed the truth. She was not just any woman. She was connected to a powerful organization and had influence in places most people never saw. The SUV, the men, all of it suddenly made sense. She admitted that her flat tire was real, but the experience had shown her something rare. She wanted to reward honesty and kindness, not with pity, but with opportunity. The man felt overwhelmed. His hands trembled slightly as he listened. He had helped without expecting anything, and now his life stood at the edge of change. She handed him an envelope and explained what was inside. It was not just money. It was a chance for a better job, financial stability, and a fresh start. She said she believed people like him deserved more than silent struggles. Tears filled his eyes. He tried to speak, but words failed him. He had spent years working hard, feeling invisible, and now someone had truly seen him. She told him to take the opportunity and promised that this was not charity. It was respect. As the SUV drove away, the man stood still, holding the envelope, his mind racing. He looked around his quiet street, the same houses, the same road. Everything looked the same, yet nothing felt the same anymore. One small act of kindness had opened a door he never knew existed, and his ordinary life was no longer ordinary at all. That night, sleep refused to come easily. The man lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling, the envelope resting on the small table beside him. He had not opened it yet. Part of him was afraid that if he did, everything would suddenly feel too real. His mind replayed the moment again and again. The black SUV, the woman stepping out, her calm voice, and the way his name sounded when she said it. It felt like a scene from someone else's life, not his own. He finally sat up and picked up the envelope. His hand was still slightly shaky. He opened it slowly, as if it might disappear if he rushed. Inside were documents neatly arranged, along with a handwritten note. The note was short but thoughtful. It thanked him again for his kindness and explained that the opportunity offered was genuine. There was a phone number at the bottom and an instruction to call when he was ready. As he read through the papers, his heart beat faster. The offer was real, clear, and far beyond anything he had ever imagined for himself. A better job, proper benefits, and stability he had never known. For years, he had lived paycheck to paycheck, always careful, always worried. Now, suddenly, there was a door open in front of him. It scared him almost as much as it excited him. The next morning, he went to work like usual, but everything felt different. The same building, the same desk, the same routine, but his thoughts were far away. He watched people move around him, unaware of what had happened in his life just hours before. He wondered how many of them had helped a stranger before, never knowing what impact it might have. The idea stayed with him all day. During his lunch break, he sat alone and finally dialed the number on the note. The call was answered quickly. The voice on the other end was polite and professional. They confirmed his details and scheduled a meeting for the next day. The calm, organized way everything was handled made him realize this was not a dream. This was happening. That evening, he walked through his neighborhood with fresh eyes. The cracked sidewalks, the small houses, the quiet streets, they had always felt like limits. Now, they felt like a starting point. He greeted neighbors he usually only nodded at. He smiled more. There was a lightness in his chest he had not felt in years. The next day, he arrived at the address he had been given. The building was large, modern, and intimidating. For a moment, he stood outside, doubting himself. He wondered if he truly belonged there. Then he remembered the woman's words about respect and honesty. He took a deep breath and walked in. Inside, he was treated with professionalism and kindness. No one looked down on him. No one rushed him. They explained everything clearly, answered his questions, and gave him time to think. For the first time, he felt valued not for what he owned or where he came from, but for who he was. By the end of the meeting, he accepted the offer. As days passed, his life slowly began to change. He started a new job, learning new skills and meeting new people. It was not easy. There were moments when he felt overwhelmed and unsure. But every time doubt crept in, he remembered the roadside, the flat tire, and the choice he made to stop. That memory gave him strength. One evening, he received a message from the woman. It was simple. She said she was glad he had taken the opportunity and hoped he was doing well. He replied with a sincere thank you, telling her how much the chance meant to him. There was no long conversation, no dramatic exchange, just mutual respect. Over time, he realized something important. The true reward was not the job or the money. It was the reminder that his actions mattered, that even an ordinary man, living an ordinary life, could make a difference simply by choosing kindness. The world still had struggles, and his life was not perfect, but he no longer felt invisible. As he moved forward, he promised himself one thing. No matter how busy or successful he became, he would never ignore someone in need. Because one unexpected stop had already shown him how powerful a simple decision could be, and how quickly an ordinary moment could turn into the beginning of something extraordinary. Life slowly settled into a new rhythm, but the man soon realized that change did not always arrive with comfort. His new routine demanded more from him than his old life ever had. The work was challenging, the expectations were high, and every day felt like a test of whether he truly deserved the opportunity he had been given. Some mornings he woke up feeling confident, while other mornings he questioned everything. Still, he pushed forward, reminding himself how this journey had begun. One evening, After a long and exhausting day, he returned home later than usual. The sky was dark, and the streetlights cast long shadows along the quiet road. As he unlocked his door, he felt a strange heaviness in his chest. It was not fear, but pressure. His life was moving fast now, and he was struggling to keep up emotionally. He made a simple dinner and sat alone at the table, staring at nothing, lost in thought. That night, memories from his past surfaced unexpectedly. He remembered the years when no one had noticed his efforts, the times he worked overtime only to be ignored, the moments when he had needed help but learned to solve everything on his own. Those experiences had shaped him into someone who expected little from the world. Now that life was offering more, he felt unsure how to accept it without guilt. Sleep came late, and when it did, it was restless. He dreamed of the roadside again. The blinking hazard lights, the flat tire, the woman's anxious face. In the dream, cars passed by endlessly, never stopping. This time, he stood frozen, unable to move. He woke up suddenly, his heart pounding, the image still clear in his mind. The next morning, he decided to walk instead of drive. He needed air, space, and time to think. As he walked, he noticed small things he had ignored before. A child laughing while riding a bicycle. An elderly man struggling with groceries. A stray dog sleeping peacefully in the sun. The world felt alive, full of quiet stories happening everywhere at once. He realized how easily people became invisible when no one took a moment to look. At a street corner, he saw a young man arguing on the phone, frustration written all over his face. Nearby, a woman sat on a bench, wiping tears from her eyes. The man felt the familiar pull in his chest again. The same feeling he had felt the day he stopped his car. He did not interfere, but he slowed down, aware that everyone carried something unseen. When he reached work, he found an email waiting for him. It was an invitation to attend a small gathering organized by the organization he now worked with. The message explained that it was meant to share stories of impact and responsibility. At first, he hesitated. He did not feel important enough to attend. But something told him this was part of his journey, so he agreed. The gathering was held in a quiet room with only a handful of people. Each person shared a short story about a moment that changed their path. Some talked about failure, others about unexpected chances. When it was his turn, he felt nervous. His voice trembled slightly as he spoke about the flat tire and the decision to stop. He did not mention the reward. He focused on the moment itself. As he spoke, he noticed something surprising. People were listening closely, not because the story was dramatic, but because it was real. When he finished, there was silence, followed by quiet nods of understanding. In that moment, he felt something shift inside him. He understood that his value did not come from the opportunity he received, but from the choice he made when no one was watching. Later that evening, he returned home feeling lighter. The doubts were still there, but they no longer controlled him. He sat by the window and looked out at the street below. Life continued as always, but he felt connected to it in a new way. He was no longer just surviving. He was becoming aware. That night, as he prepared for bed, he realized something deeply important. The roadside stop had not only changed his circumstances, it had awakened a responsibility inside him. A responsibility to stay human, to notice others, and to act when it mattered. Whatever came next in his life, he knew one thing for sure. That unexpected stop had already changed him in ways no reward ever could. The morning arrived quietly, but there was a strange tension in the air. The man woke earlier than usual, his mind already active before his eyes fully opened. He lay still for a moment, listening to the sounds outside his window. A distant car passed, a dog barked, and somewhere a door closed. Everything sounded normal, yet he felt as if something important was waiting just beyond the ordinary. He got out of bed and followed his routine, though his thoughts kept drifting. While drinking his morning tea, he stood near the window and looked down the street. That was when he saw it again. A black SUV was parked at the corner, the same kind that had once turned his life upside down. His breath caught in his chest. For a moment, he told himself it was just another vehicle, nothing more. But the feeling in his gut said otherwise. The SUV did not move. Minutes passed, and it remained there, dark and silent. His heart began to beat faster. He tried to remember if he had done something wrong, said something he should not have, or made a mistake at work. Nothing came to mind. Still, fear slowly crept in, uninvited and heavy. He stepped outside, pretending to check the mailbox, though he knew there would be nothing inside. The morning air felt colder than usual. As he stood there, the SUV's engine started. The sound echoed down the quiet street. Slowly, the vehicle rolled forward and stopped directly in front of his house. Two men stepped out first. Their movements were calm and controlled. They did not rush. They did not speak. The man felt his throat go dry. Neighbors peeked through windows and from behind curtains. The street that was usually unnoticed now felt like a stage, and he stood at the center of it. The back door of the SUV opened. His heart pounded so loudly he could hear it in his ears. Then she stepped out, the woman from the roadside. This time, she looked even more composed, dressed neatly, her expression serious but not cold. Seeing her brought both relief and confusion. He stepped forward slowly, unsure of what to say. She greeted him warmly and thanked him again for coming outside. She explained that she had returned because there was something important she wanted him to understand. The men remained nearby, silent and respectful, creating a sense of importance around the moment. She told him that after their first meeting, she had looked deeper into his life, not to invade his privacy, but to understand his journey. She spoke of his years of hard work, his quiet struggles, and how he had never asked for help even when he needed it most. Hearing his life described so clearly left him speechless. He had always thought no one noticed. Then she explained why the SUV had come again. She said opportunities often came once, but true change required courage to accept them fully. She wanted to see if he truly believed he deserved more than survival. Her words were not harsh, but they were powerful. She handed him a small folder and told him to open it later. Inside, she said, was something that would test his readiness to step forward, not just professionally, but personally. He nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle deep inside him. Before leaving, she said something that stayed with him. She told him that kindness was rare, but consistency was even rarer. One good act could open a door, but the choices made after that defined who a person truly was. She encouraged him to keep choosing compassion, even when life became easier. As the SUV drove away, the street slowly returned to its normal rhythm. Curtains closed. Neighbors disappeared. The silence felt louder than before. He stood there for a long moment, holding the folder, his mind racing with thoughts and questions. Inside his house, he finally opened it. The contents were not what he expected. It was not about money or promotion. It was an invitation to be part of a community program designed to help people in need, using his experience and voice. It was a chance to give back, not from a place of struggle, but from strength. He sat down, overwhelmed but clear-minded. The black SUV had not come to reward him again. It had come to challenge him, to remind him that true growth did not end with success. It began there. That morning marked a turning point. He realized his life was no longer just about what he gained. It was about what he chose to do with it. And as the quiet street returned to normal, he understood that his journey was far from over. The invitation stayed on his mind for days. He carried it with him, folded carefully in his pocket, as if it were fragile. Every time he touched it, he felt a mix of excitement and responsibility. This was not like the opportunity he had received before. This was not about improving his own life. This was about stepping into the lives of others. On the day of the first meeting, he arrived early. The building was not grand or impressive. It was simple, welcoming, and full of quiet movement. People walked in and out, some smiling, some tired, some nervous. As he stepped inside, he felt the same hesitation he had felt on the roadside. That moment when he could choose to turn away or step forward. He chose to step forward. Inside the room, a small group had gathered. They were ordinary people from different backgrounds. Some were professionals, others volunteers, all connected by one shared purpose. They wanted to make a difference, not with loud promises, but with real action. As introductions began, He listened more than he spoke. Each person had a story. Some had once been helped themselves. Others had simply decided they did not want to ignore suffering anymore. When it was his turn, he spoke honestly. He told them he had never planned to be part of something like this. He explained how a single decision had changed his path. His voice was steady, but his heart was full. The room felt still as people listened. There was no applause, no dramatic reaction, just understanding. As the meeting continued, he learned what the program truly was. It focused on helping people during moments of sudden crisis. Flat tires, missed rent, medical emergencies, broken systems that left people stranded. The goal was not to rescue people permanently, but to give them stability long enough to regain control of their lives. It was simple, practical, and deeply human. Over the next few weeks, he became more involved. He answered calls, visited families, and listened to stories that stayed with him long after the day ended. He met a single mother who had lost her job and was about to lose her home. He met an elderly man whose pension had been delayed, leaving him without food. He met a young student who slept in his car while attending classes. Each story changed him. One evening, he was called to assist someone stranded on the side of the road. A broken-down car, late at night, in a quiet area. As he approached, his heart tightened. The scene looked painfully familiar. Hazard lights blinking. A worried face standing beside a car. For a moment, he felt as if time had folded in on itself. He parked and stepped out, approaching slowly. The person looked relieved to see him. He smiled gently and offered help. As he worked, he felt something deeper than satisfaction. He felt alignment. This was where his journey had been leading. After the car was fixed, the person thanked him again and again. He refused any payment, just as he had done before. But this time it felt different. He was no longer just reacting. He was choosing a path. Weeks later, he received a message from the woman. She asked how the program was going. He replied with honesty, telling her how much it had changed him. She responded simply, saying she had believed he would rise to the challenge. There was no praise in her words, only quiet confidence. As months passed, his life grew fuller, not busier. He still worked his job, still lived in the same house, still faced stress and fatigue. But something inside him had shifted. He no longer measured success only by comfort or security. He measured it by impact. One evening, after a long day, he sat alone and reflected on how far he had come. He realized that the black SUV, the invitation, and the opportunities had all been tools. The real transformation had happened inside him. He had moved from someone who helped when it felt right to someone who chose to live with intention. He understood now that true change did not come from being noticed by powerful people. It came from noticing others, from stopping when the world rushed by, from offering help without knowing the outcome. As he prepared for sleep that night, he felt at peace. His journey had begun with a flat tire and a simple decision. Now it continued with purpose, shaped by compassion and responsibility. And deep down, he knew this was only the beginning of the story he was meant to live. Weeks turned into months, and the man's life had changed in ways he could never have imagined. What had begun as a single act of kindness, stopping to help a woman with a flat tire, had evolved into a journey that reshaped not only his circumstances, but his understanding of himself and the world around him. He had grown more confident, more aware, and more willing to step forward when others were in need. But he had no idea that one more surprise awaited him, one that would leave him completely stunned. It happened on an ordinary Thursday morning. The man had just finished breakfast and was getting ready for work. The sunlight streamed through his window, casting patterns on the walls he had grown so familiar with. He had his routine down to a science, but today something felt different. The air was heavier, almost anticipatory. A low hum of unease stirred in his chest, and he could not shake the feeling that today would not pass quietly. When he stepped outside, he saw it. The black SUV. This time it did not appear in the distance or parked down the street. It was right in front of his house, engine running, gleaming under the morning sun. Two well-dressed men stepped out, as before, but this time they carried themselves with purpose. The man's stomach tightened. He remembered the first visit, the shock, the confusion, and the overwhelming mix of fear and curiosity. He braced himself. The SUV's back door opened, and there she was, the woman who had set this chain of events in motion. But she was not alone. Behind her, several people emerged, all appearing professional, confident, and quietly imposing. It was clear that this was no casual visit. She approached him with a calm, steady smile, but there was something in her eyes that told him this moment carried weight. "Good morning," she said. "I wanted to see you in person today." Her voice was even, but there was a warmth underneath it that made him feel at ease despite the tension. She explained that after their first encounter, she had been observing the way he conducted himself, not just in helping her, but in life. She had seen someone who lived with integrity, who helped quietly and without expectation, and she wanted to honor that. The men standing around offered silent support, and the woman handed him a small folder. Inside were documents that completely stunned him. They outlined a new opportunity, not just a job or a reward, but a life-changing proposal. A chance to invest in a project, one that could secure his future, improve his neighborhood, and help countless people in need. It was a recognition of his character, a way to amplify the goodness he had already shown. The man's mind raced. He had never imagined such a thing could happen to him. He had spent most of his life working hard, barely scraping by, and believing that small acts of kindness often went unnoticed. And now, here it was, the universe, or fate, or destiny, was rewarding him in a way he could not have planned. The woman smiled again. "This is not charity," she said. "It is respect for the choices you've made. You acted with integrity when no one was watching. That matters more than anything else." Her words sank deep. He felt a lump in his throat. This was validation, not for what he had achieved materially, but for who he was at his core. Over the next hour, she and her team explained the project, the responsibilities, and the potential impact. They answered his questions patiently and clearly, leaving no doubt that this was real and that he was ready for it. For the first time in years, he felt fully seen, fully understood, and fully trusted. When the SUV finally drove away, the man stood in front of his house, holding the folder, absorbing everything. The street was quiet again, the ordinary sounds of the neighborhood returning. But he knew that nothing in his life would ever be ordinary again. The opportunity was more than financial stability or career advancement. It was a testament to the power of selflessness, integrity, and quiet courage. That evening, as he sat in his living room reflecting, he realized something profound. The woman, the SUV, the project, they were all symbols. Symbols of what happens when someone chooses the right path, even when no one is watching. He understood that his life had been forever altered, not by luck, but by the simple, courageous act of stopping to help a stranger. From that moment, he made a silent promise to himself to continue living with honesty, compassion, and courage, knowing that one good decision could ripple far beyond what he could ever imagine. And in that quiet understanding, he felt a deep sense of peace, knowing that his life's journey had only just begun and that the most extraordinary chapters were still ahead. The days that followed the woman's visit passed in a blur of new responsibilities, challenges, and opportunities. The man's life had shifted dramatically, but even as doors opened, he remained the same humble person at heart. He still lived in his modest house, still walked the same streets, still carried the quiet patience that had defined him for years. But now, he carried something more, a sense of purpose that filled every action, every thought, and every choice he made. He spent mornings focused on the project she had entrusted to him. Meetings, phone calls, and planning sessions took up hours of his day, but he found himself energized rather than exhausted. Every task reminded him that the ripple of his single act of kindness had grown far beyond what he had ever imagined. This wasn't just about personal success or financial stability. It was about using what he had been given to create opportunities for others, to offer help in moments of need, and to inspire people who had lost hope. Evenings, however, were quieter. He would sit by his window, sipping tea, thinking about how far he had come. The flat tire, the roadside encounter, the black SUV. It all seemed almost unreal now. But the emotions he had felt, the choices he had made, and the people he had touched were real. He understood something that he had never realized before. Life does not reward you for what you expect. It rewards you for what you give without expectation. One evening, a letter arrived. It was handwritten in the familiar, elegant script of the woman who had started it all. She did not write about rewards or recognition. She wrote about courage, integrity, and the importance of continuing to act with humanity. She reminded him that life's true measure was not in wealth or status, but in the quiet choices that defined who he was when no one was watching. Her words stayed with him, echoing in his mind long after he had read them. Over time, he saw the impact of his actions firsthand. The project he had been given allowed him to help families in desperate situations, just as he had once helped that woman. He met people who had been invisible to the world, people whose struggles no one had noticed. Some had lost hope entirely. Others were simply waiting for a chance. And with each opportunity he offered, he remembered the moment on the roadside, the decision to stop, to act, to help without expectation. One day, as he visited a neighborhood to check on a family receiving assistance, a small child ran up to him. The child had wide, trusting eyes, and he smiled nervously, unsure if he should approach. The man knelt down and spoke gently, asking the child's name. The child laughed and ran off to show his parents something he had made. In that simple interaction, the man felt the same warmth he had felt when he helped the woman months ago. He realized that life's most meaningful moments often came from connection, empathy, and the courage to act. Even in moments of stress or doubt, he reminded himself that the journey had begun with something ordinary, stopping to help a stranger with a flat tire. That simple act had led to an extraordinary chain of events, transforming his life and the lives of others in ways he could never have planned. The recognition, the opportunities, and the responsibilities were all meaningful, but they were secondary to the lesson he had learned. True kindness is never wasted, and integrity always leaves a mark. As he lay down each night, he no longer worried about the future the way he once had. Instead, he reflected on the lives he had touched, the small victories, and the hope he had helped restore. He knew that the road ahead would not always be easy, that challenges would come, and that there would still be moments when he was unsure what to do. But he also knew that the choices he made, grounded in compassion and courage, would guide him forward. The story of the flat tire, the black SUV, and the mysterious woman had started as a simple act of humanity, yet had grown into a life-changing journey. And in the quiet of his home, the man understood something vital. Life's true power lies in the moments we choose to act selflessly, the courage we summon to do good when no one is watching, and the ripple effect that unfolds quietly, unseen, yet unstoppable. He smiled, at peace, knowing that his story was no longer just about him. It was about every life touched by kindness, every moment of courage, and every choice made with a good heart. From that day forward, he lived intentionally, aware that ordinary actions could create extraordinary consequences, and that the world was full of opportunities to make a difference, one small act at a time.